It was the kind of neighborhood where you knew who lived in every house, and where the biggest excitement was usually a misplaced Amazon package or someone's dog getting loose. Nothing big ever happened around here, until the day the old truck rolled in. It was a dusty blue beast of a thing, heavy, slow, worn out like a workhorse that had seen too many winters. Nobody recognized it, and in a place like ours, an unfamiliar truck was enough to get everybody's curtains twitching. I was sitting on my porch that morning, nursing a second cup of coffee, when I noticed them. Two guys in cheap polo shirts, badges clipped to their belts like they thought they were somebody. Neighborhood compliance officers, they said, but everybody just called them the fake HOA cops. Self-appointed, self-important, always ready to boss someone around about a trash can being 2 inches off the curb. And they were making a beeline for that truck. I watched, half curious, half annoyed. Something about the way they puffed themselves up made my skin crawl. What happened next, though? I never saw it coming, and neither did they. Trust me, you're going to want to hear how this all went down. And hey, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because no matter where you are, you're about to find out just how badly these fake cops messed up. The 2 fake HOA cops wasted no time. They marched right up to that old truck, like they owned the place, already pulling out their little notepads. I couldn't hear everything they were saying, but you could tell. Loud voices, lots of pointing. They thought they'd caught some big, juicy violation. Unauthorized vehicle. One of them barked, loud enough for a few more neighbors to start peeking through their windows. The guy driving the truck was just sitting there. This older man looked like he could have been somebody's grandpa. Gray hair under a battered ball cap. Work boots scuffed to hell. Calm as a summer morning. He didn't flinch when they banged on the door. Didn't even look rattled when they told him he needed to vacate the premises immediately or they'd call real authorities. Watching it, my stomach twisted. It wasn't just annoying, it was wrong. There was no law saying you couldn't park an old truck on a public street. No rule that said you had to answer to these guys. But the way they leaned in, crowding him, laughing like they were already telling the story at the bar later, it made my blood boil. And that old man, he just smiled. Real slow, almost like he knew something the rest of us didn't. It was the kind of smile that makes you lean forward without realizing it, waiting to see what about to happen next. And believe me, something was about to happen that would change the whole mood on that street. These guys had no idea who they were messing with, but they were about to find out. The fake cops must have taken that slow smile the wrong way, like it was a challenge. One of them yanked open the truck's door without a second thought, barking something about non-compliance and fines. That's when the old man finally moved, real casual, like he had all the time in the world. He swung one leg out of the cab, planted his boot on the ground, and stood up tall, steady, with the kind of posture that didn't come from gym workouts, but from years of carrying real weight on his shoulders. "Son," he said, voice gravelly but calm, "I think you're making a mistake." His tone wasn't angry. It was something worse. It was the kind of tone that made you stop and double-check your decisions. But these guys, they didn't get it. They doubled down, started threatening him with arrest. Mind you, they had no real authority, and one even grabbed the old man's arm like he was about to haul him off. From my porch, I felt my fists clench. Other neighbors were outside now, too, hanging back, unsure what to do. Everyone could feel it, that thick, charged air before something breaks. But the old man didn't resist, didn't argue. He just gave a little nod and pulled a phone out of his pocket. A short call, maybe 15 seconds. We could all hear the sharp, clipped tone of military words flying out. Then he hung up, slipped the phone back into his pocket, and looked the fake cops dead in the eyes. "Help's on the way," he said softly. And something about the way he said it sent a shiver down my spine. The 2 fake cops didn't catch the warning. If anything, they got cockier. One of them even pulled out some zip ties from his pocket, like he was going to cut the old man right there on the street. "You're resisting enforcement," the bigger one sneered, practically bouncing on his toes. You could tell they thought they had this guy trapped, thought they were about to humiliate him in front of the whole neighborhood. I could see Mrs. Dalton from 2 houses down peeking from behind her screen door, her hand covering her mouth. Mr. Reeves across the street actually shook his head like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Still, nobody stepped in yet. Frozen, waiting, caught between disbelief and fear. The old man just stood there, arms loose at his sides, watching, almost like he was studying them, measuring. And then, you could hear it, low at first, a deep rumble, growing louder by the second. Heads turned, tires crunched against the pavement. Out of nowhere, a sleek black SUV pulled onto the street, moving with slow, deliberate weight, like a shark through water. It was spotless, government plates glinting under the sun. It rolled to a stop right behind the old man's truck, and out stepped a figure that made every mouth in the crowd drop open. A 4-star general, full uniform, medals shining bright enough to catch the light and scattered across the asphalt. The old man didn't flinch, just tipped his head in greeting, as if they were old friends meeting for coffee. The general's voice cut through the stunned silence like a blade. "Is there a problem here, Sergeant?" He wasn't asking the fake cops. He was asking the old man. You could practically hear the fake cop's brain short-circuit. The taller one dropped the zip ties so fast they clattered on the pavement. The other guy took a step back, suddenly real quiet, like maybe if he stayed still enough, he could disappear. Nobody moved. Not a single neighbor even breathed too loudly. We were all locked on this scene. The general standing tall, the old man relaxed but ready, and those two clowns realizing they were way out of their depth. "These men bothering you, Sergeant?" the general asked again, voice sharp but controlled. The old man smiled just a little, like this was all playing out exactly how he figured it would. "They seem confused about who's in charge around here, sir," he answered, his voice carrying easily across the street. The general nodded once, slowly, like he was filing away every detail. Then, and this part I'll never forget, he reached into the SUV and pulled out a radio. Not a phone, not some cheap walkie-talkie. A military-issue radio, crackling to life as he barked a few commands we couldn't quite catch. Within minutes, 2 black sedans and another SUV rolled into the neighborhood, silent and serious. Men in suits and sunglasses stepped out, not local police, not rent-a-cops. Real agents, real authority. The fake HOA cops tried to stammer out something about community regulations, about suspicious vehicles. But no one was listening. Not anymore. The general turned to them slowly, his voice cold enough to freeze the air. You just detained a decorated veteran on his own time and impeded a federal escort mission. Escort mission? My mind raced. This wasn't just an old man in an old truck. We had no idea who we were dealing with. And neither did they. The 2 fake cops looked like they might melt right there on the sidewalk. One of them tried to mumble some kind of excuse, something about community safety protocols, but his words died halfway out of his mouth. The general didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He just stared at them with this heavy, loaded silence that said everything. The kind of silence that makes grown men sweat through their shirts. Meanwhile, the neighborhood was still frozen, caught between awe and shame. I could feel it, that quiet, ugly feeling starting to ripple through the crowd. We'd all seen those fake cops harass people before, a trash bin too close to the street, a lawn that wasn't green enough. We chuckled about it at barbecues, whispered about it over fences, but nobody ever stepped in. Not until today. And watching them squirm under the weight of real authority, realizing they weren't as powerful as they thought, it hit something deep. I caught sight of Mr. Reeves shifting uncomfortably. Mrs. Dalton lowered her head. Guilt, regret, because maybe the neighborhood wasn't as good as we liked to believe. Maybe we had let too many little wrongs slide. The general's agents quietly approached the fake cops, speaking to them in low, firm voices. Papers were shown. IDs checked. No shouting. No big dramatic takedown. Just a cold, methodical dismantling of their fake authority. It was brutal in its calmness. And the old man, he stood there like a mountain, solid, unmoved, letting justice unfold around him. Not angry, not gloating, just steady. Watching it all happen, I realized this moment wasn't just about them getting what they deserved. It was about all of us seeing the cracks in our own community and maybe, finally, doing something about it. The agents didn't just send those fake cops packing. They started documenting everything. Photos, notes, quiet conversations with witnesses. It was surgical, efficient, like they'd done this 100 times before. The two fake HOA cops sat on the curb now, heads down, their fake badges lying useless in the dirt beside them. The old man leaned against his truck, arms crossed over his chest, watching with a calm that somehow made him seem even bigger than before. The general walked over to him, and they spoke quietly for a minute, words too low for any of us to catch. But the old man nodded once, firm and sure. That's when the general turned and called out to the gathering crowd, addressing all of us, as if we'd been part of this mess too. "This man is here on official business," he said, his voice carrying across every porch and driveway. "He's protecting something a whole lot bigger than property lines and parking complaints. And he deserves better than what he just got." The weight of those words sank deep into the silence. People shifted awkwardly, some looking at their shoes, others glancing nervously at the old man. A few started to murmur apologies, half-hearted, mostly embarrassed, but he didn't seem to need them. He wasn't here for apologies. The general gave a sharp gesture, and two agents brought over a battered green duffel bag from the SUV. They opened it just enough for a glint of metal. Heavy, official-looking cases stacked inside. Not guns, not gear, documents, sealed crates, government transport. That's when it clicked for me, and probably a lot of other neighbors too. The old man wasn't just passing through. He was protecting something. Something important enough to have a federal escort. And somehow, our little neighborhood had become part of something much bigger than we ever realized. The agents moved fast after that, securing the truck like it was carrying gold bars instead of old crates and folders. Two stayed posted at the ends of the street, polite but firm with anyone trying to get too close. No more pretending. No more neighborhood games. This was real. And those two fake HOA cops? They sat there on the curb, pale and shaking, still waiting for whatever punishment was about to rain down. The general turned back to them, and this time, he didn't bother keeping his voice low. "You impersonated officers. You unlawfully detained a federal courier. You obstructed a secured operation." Each word landed like a hammer blow. One of the fake cops actually started to cry. No lie. Tears spilling down his cheeks while he muttered, we didn't know. But the general didn't have any pity left to give. "Ignorance," he said, his voice flat as stone, "is not a defense." Then he nodded to one of his men, and just like that, the two were handcuffed. Real cuffs this time, not zip ties. They didn't fight. They didn't even argue. They just wilted like flowers under a hard sun. Watching it happen, I didn't feel sorry for them. Not even a little. They'd spent months bullying good people, waving fake power around like a weapon. And today, they got to feel what real consequences looked like. As the agents led them away, one of the neighbors, brave enough now that the tables had turned, called out, "You should have just minded your business." It got a few chuckles. But mostly, there was just this heavy, stunned silence. Because deep down, we all knew the truth. We had let people like them grow bold in our neighborhood. And it had almost cost us something we couldn't afford to lose. After the fake cops were hauled off, the street didn't go back to normal. Not right away. People lingered on their porches and sidewalks, still stunned, still trying to piece it all together. I stayed sitting on my front steps, watching the agents finish their work, the old truck rumbling quietly as it prepared to leave. The old man hadn't said much since the cuffs clicked shut. He didn't have to. His silence spoke louder than anything. A few neighbors drifted over to each other, whispering in low, embarrassed voices. Some offered weak jokes, trying to break the tension. Others just stood there, guilty looks painted across their faces. I saw Mrs. Dalton wiping her eyes. Mr. Reeves actually walked up to the old man, hesitant, like a kid facing principal, and muttered an apology. The old man just gave him a small nod, nothing more. No anger, no self-righteousness, just understanding, like he'd seen worse, like he expected it. That hit me harder than anything else. He wasn't surprised at how we acted. He was used to it, used to being underestimated, used to standing alone when it mattered most. And we had almost failed him. Almost failed something much bigger than a parking violation or a property dispute. The general clapped the old man on the shoulder, a quiet, brotherly gesture, and climbed back into his SUV. The old truck followed behind, rolling down the street like a ghost ship leaving a battlefield. And just like that, they were gone. No sirens, no parades, just a few black vehicles fading into the horizon, leaving behind a street that suddenly didn't feel so cozy anymore. It felt raw, exposed, like we had seen something in ourselves we couldn't unsee, and now we had to live with it. The days after the old truck and the black SUVs disappeared were strangely quiet, the kind of quiet that settles in when people are sitting with uncomfortable truths. Our neighborhood wasn't the same, and maybe that was a good thing. For once, people weren't just waving politely and looking the other way. They were stopping, talking, checking in with each other. A few even knocked on my door, asking what I thought we could do to make sure nothing like that ever happened again. Mrs. Dalton organized a meeting, a real one, not one of those fake HOA patrols. No badges, no threats, just neighbors, folding chairs, and a little bit of humility. We sat under the big oak tree at the end of the street, listening as Mr. Reeves, the same man who used to joke about those pesky code violations, said what we were all thinking. We forgot what it means to actually look out for each other, he said, voice thick with regret. We let pettiness and power games get in the way of being decent human beings. Nobody argued. Nobody shrugged it off. We all felt it. That day with the old man, the way we froze, the way we failed, it wasn't just about him. It was about us, about what we'd allowed to grow in the cracks. So we made some changes. We dismantled the fake HOA patrol. We set real community guidelines, fair, simple, and voted on by everyone. But more than that, we made a choice to step up, to speak up, to stop pretending someone else's problem wasn't our own. Sometimes when I'm walking the neighborhood now, I swear I hear it, the low rumble of an old truck rolling by. Maybe it's just my imagination, or maybe it's a reminder that real strength doesn't come from authority. It comes from character and from standing up when it matters most.